Bienvenidos, Hushamdeed, and welcome to this HUD 8 Consulting networking techtorial on Cisco's Enterprise Networking Security and Automation ESNA CCNA version 7 course. In this packet tracer tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at activity 5.1.9. Now, this activity is going to build on the knowledge we've acquired in activity 5.1.8 because in that video, we were working on standard numbered IPv4 ACLs. And so in this video tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at configuring named standard IPv4 ACLs as opposed to numbered ACLs. So let's dive in here and take a look at this activity. As you can see, we have our topology over here on the left, and on the right hand side, we've got our addressing table and really sort of the script that we're going to be going by. So all three workstations, PC 0, 1, and 2, should be able to ping the web server and the file server. And so let's pull PC 1 down here. Let's go to our desktop and to the command prompt and give me a little more room there to see what we're going to be pinging. And let's go ahead and ping 192.168.100.1. And then that's going to work. Let's check 200.1. 200.1 is our file server, 100.1 is the web server. We can see those in the addressing table. Let's take a look at PC 0 and make sure that we've got connectivity. And again, this is always a good practice before and after you apply ACLs, 192.168.100.1, and then we'll check the 200.1 for the file server. And we've got connectivity there. And we're not going to check connectivity between all of the different PCs. We're going to assume that those PCs have connectivity, and maybe we'll do that here with this guy. So we'll say 192.168.200.1. So we've got connectivity to the file server. Let's check 100.1. We've got connectivity to the web server. And then let's check PC 0 and 1, because if I can ping PC 0 and 1, it's going to be 20. Where are we at? Oh, sorry, 20.3. Whoops. There we go. So 20.3 is PC. Oh, that's actually me. I apologize. Where am I at here? I'm looking for PC. No, that's PC 0. I apologize. PC 0. And then let's check 20.4, which is PC 1. So we've got connectivity over to VLAN 20, or I should say the 192.168.20 segment of the network. So all of our connectivity is working. Now let's go ahead and follow through on the work for the ACLs. Now remember, when we're talking about standard ACLs, we can only filter on the source, right? It's got to be the source. We can't say source and destination. We can't do it on just the destination. It's only on the source. Now, we're going to configure the following named ACL on router 1. So let's get router 1 up here, and let's get the CLI up and operational. And here we go. And so they give us the playbook here as to what we're supposed to follow. But let's talk about this. Remember, when I go in from privilege exec, when I go from user exec to privilege exec with the enable command, and then I go into global config with configure terminal or just conf t, right? I can say access list, but watch when I say access list, does it give me the option to put a name in here? And it does not. Let me come out to a real Cisco iOS router. So here's a 2811, and we're still running 15 code on this guy, I believe. Yeah, 15.1. So let's get into global config, and let's say access list, and see what a real Cisco router shows us. Now, it's going to show us a lot more in terms of the numbers. There's a lot more going on here. But you don't see the option for a name. So again, if you want to have a numbered standard ACL, you would just simply say access list, the number, and then what it is we want to do. Permit, or we can deny, right? Like we did the other day, 192.168.10.0. And then we work in our wildcard mask. Oops, sorry. 255, right? So we could do something like that. But that, again, is a numbered ACL. And numbers are not very descriptive. And so in order to get a named ACL, that's where the IP access list comes in. And I do a question mark. You can see it wants to know, is it going to be a standard ACL or extended? If I say standard, you can see here it will actually allow me to do a numbered ACL still, right? Or I can go ahead and provide a word for the access list name. And this makes a lot of sense, right? I need something that's descriptive. So file underscore server underscore restrictions, right? Very clear based off that ACL name what this ACL is for. It is for file server restrictions. And so here's what we're going to do. We're now in the named ACL, standard named ACL subconfiguration mode here. You can see that from this standard, right, STD, and NACL, or named ACL. And what are we going to permit? Well, we're going to permit host, not a whole subnet. I'm going to permit an individual host. And let me show you two ways that you may see this done. The first is going to be permit host 192.168.20.4. So who are we permitting? We are permitting, whoops, let me slide over here, PC1, right? So PC1 is going to be permitted, allowed to access the file server. And then we're going to say permit host. And here's how you might see that. That host is a keyword. I could say, like we did yesterday, right? 192.168.100.100, and then do quad zeros. So remember, that's a wildcard mask, not a subnet mask. So what would the subnet mask be if it's all quad zeros in the wildcard mask? Well, remember, it's the inverse. So it's going to be 255.255.255.255 as the subnet mask. And that is what we call a host, a /32, or a host subnet mask, host length subnet mask, because it's for one IP address and one IP address only. Now, you might see it like this, but in ACLs, they give you this little keyword right here, right? Host. And it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to simply say permit host and then put the host IP in there than it is to put the wildcard mask in there. And that's why in ACLs, and the same convention exists on Cisco firewalls, you can use the keyword host. And then you don't have to put 0.0.0.0, right? Because that is going to be possibly some typos that you might incur. So who are we allowing? We're allowing 20.4, which is PC1, but then we're also allowing the web server to reach the file server, which means PC0 and PC2 will not have access to the file server. So let's check this out. Let's finish this ACL, right? Now, do I have to say deny any at the end? Again, sort of a pop quiz. And the answer is you do not, right? But remember from our previous video what we talked about. If I don't put the deny any, in fact, I'll leave it off for right now. We're going to leave that off for right now. And let me go ahead and get on to router. We're on router 1. We're going to get into the interface, and it says apply the ACL outbound on the fast Ethernet 01 interface, which should be that interface. There's an easy way for us to check. We know the file server IP is 200.100, which means it's going to be on that, you can see here, the Ethernet 010. That's going to be the segment. And it's interesting here, let me double check that, where it says so it says apply it to fast Ethernet 0/1, even though, it's 010. And let's see what we see over here when we say do show IP interface brief, right? If we're struggling trying to figure out what the interfaces are. So it looks like the addressing table added these additional zeros on at the end, but we're not seeing that reflected in the, I'm sorry, we are. I was looked up here, was not looking far enough down. So we are seeing that, right? So Ethernet 010, but the 200.1 is Ethernet. It says, okay, so here we go. So it says Ethernet 010 is that 192.168.200.1, right? But what do they have here for Ethernet 010? That's the 20.1. The actual 200.1 is on fast Ethernet 01. And you can see it looks like the addressing table is just mixed up a little bit here, right? Because the problem would be with the addressing table and not with the config that they've got on the routers, unless, of course, there's an easy way to check that. Let's go into interface. And again, it should be fast Ethernet 01. And if I say shut, yeah, so it is fast Ethernet 01. That is the interface on router 1 to which this file server is connected, right? So we've got a typo up here for the 192.168.200.1 interface. It should be fast Ethernet 01 for that. And for the 192.168.20.1, it should be Ethernet 010. And that was why I struggled. I looked up to the right here, and then I quickly glanced down here, and then I was like, oh, well, they don't have the 0 in there because I saw the IP here, but then I was like, wait a minute, we've got something wrong with either the addressing table or the config on the router. And so we're going to assume that it is the addressing table for this activity that is incorrect. And this instruction down here, apply it on fast Ethernet 01, that is correct. That is where it should be applied, right? So, oops, sorry, say no shut. Let's bring that interface back up. Let spanning tree do its thing there. And we're already in the interface. Now remember, I haven't put the deny any, and there's a reason for that, because I want to drive home this point. And let's pull that back just a skosh. I want to drive home this point back to whether or not you have to say deny any at the end of any ACL. And the answer is no, it is not a requirement, because there is an implicit deny any that we don't ever see at the end of every ACL. So I'm on the interface. I'm going to say, oops, sorry, IP access group, and this is a long one here, file underscore server underscore restrictions in the outbound direction. Again, Cisco best practice recommendation with standard ACLs is to get them as close to the destination as possible. And the destination, who we're trying to protect here, is the file server. And so that's why we place that ACL right here on fast Ethernet 01. So we're going to do it in the outbound direction because the packets would be going out to the server, right? Not coming in from that file server. So I've put that on there. Let's say do show access list, right? And you'll notice I don't have to say do show IP access list. If I say do show access list, I see the ACL and it shows me the name. Oops, sorry. Let's get back to the context sensitive help here for just 1 second. So if I say show access list and do a question mark, you can see I can even put the name in here, but I don't have to. I can just say show access list, and this goes back to the conversation. If you've only got 1 or 2 ACLs with a few entries, a few access control entries or ACEs per ACL, it might not be that big of a deal to just simply say show access list. However, if you've got a whole bunch of ACLs, and in each of those ACLs you've got 50 or 60 ACEs, access control entries, then you might want to trim things down by saying show access list file underscore server underscore restrictions, and then it would only show you that ACL and its associated access control entries or ACEs. So now let's go ahead, let's take a step back. We've seen how we can see this. Remember, show IP, how we can see the ACL. If I say show IP interface, and we'll say fast Ethernet 01, and I pipe it to include access and then space list here, you can see it shows me we have an ACL applied to that interface, right? And when you're troubleshooting things in an environment where you've got routers, and you're working with ACLs or whatever, I highly recommend this command. This is a great command to get to an interface and check to see, hey, is there an inbound or an outbound ACL on this interface that might be impacting things? Now, we've worked through that, so let's go back and talk about this deny any at the end. And here's why you want that statement explicitly put into the ACL. So we permitted 20.4 and 100.100. So we permitted PC1 and the web server. So let's come to PC0 and let's try to ping the file server 200.100, and we get a nice message back telling us, hey, replies coming back from the router, destination host unreachable. And that should be our first clue that, hey, there may be an ACL involved. Let's go to PC2 and do the same thing and ping 200. Sorry, not 1. I was pinging 1, not 100 prior to that. So, and you can see we get the destination host unreachable, right? So we know the ACL's working, but here's why this is important. If I say show access list, or let's say do show access, or just show access list, sorry about that, show access list, right? So we're actually not seeing the hit count here, right? And it says if you say the show access list to verify the ACL configuration, you can see where it's located. But we're not seeing the hit count here like we did because we haven't come from any of those servers yet, 20.4 or 100.100. But what else are we not seeing? We're not seeing traffic that's being denied because we don't have the deny any statement in there. So let's add the deny any statement in here. Let's get into global config. We're going to say IP access list standard file underscore server underscore restrictions. And we're going to say, and here's where we would come in and do a sequence number, right? Because I don't want deny any to be sequence number 1. We don't want that. I want it to be 30, right? And if I thought maybe I was going to allow other servers down the road, what if I say 900, right? I'll do a question mark. You can see then we can permit, right? Or we can deny any. And I use 900, and let me show you why. I do show IP access lists. Because what if I've got some hosts that may be coming online after the fact, right? Like 50.4 or 60.4. If I have the deny any at, what am I trying to say? At sequence number 30, then if I wanted to use by 10, go by tens, that might be a problem, right? Because then I got to change where the deny any's at. Here I put it at 900, meaning I can go 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And this is always going to be the last statement, right? That deny any. But here's why that deny any is super, super important. Again, we saw that, we saw that none of the positive rules got hit. But let's take a look and see what happens now. And there was no negative rule to be hit. Now we've got the deny any in there, and I keep pushing that wrong button there. I apologize. We've got the deny any in there. So now let's come out here and say show access list, and now I can see the matches, right? So I can see the traffic that's being denied, and this is a huge plus because if you're in a network environment where people are not supposed to be accessing the file server and you're seeing your denies increment, maybe substantially, right? You may want to investigate further. So this is a good best practice, is at the end to explicitly deny all of the other traffic. If you're permitting things initially, deny everything at the end explicitly so that you can see if you've got matches. And then you could investigate further to find out what may or may not be going on. So all 3 workstations should be able to ping the web server, but only PC1 and the web server should be able to ping the file server. So let's check PC1. I think we already did that. We'll say 200.100. I was saying 200.1, but it's 200.100. And we may get an ARP here, and then we'll get success. And there it is, right? So we've got success out to the file server from PC1. We know PC0 and 2, those are denied. Let's try the web server briefly here, and let's see if the web server is going to allow me to ping 192.168.200.100. And so we've got connectivity from the host that we would anticipate. You can see down here in the lower right, completion percentage is 100. But again, more important than the completion percentage is what we talked about here, right? Using IP access list gives me access to named standard ACLs, as well as extended, but we're focused on standard named ACLs here because, again, numbers are great, but they're not very descriptive. This is a super example of a very descriptive access control list name. We've got our access control entries. Most importantly is this last deny any. Not required, but a good best practice to follow to see, is somebody trying to hit this server that's not supposed to be hitting the file server? We talked about how we would look at the ACL. We again talked about that show IP interface command. And again, they show you just this command here. I would definitely pipe it to include access space list when you're digging through your environment trying to find if there are ACLs applied to interfaces. All right, well, that is going to do it for our standard named ACL techtorial. In the next video, we're now going to start to take a look at some extended ACLs, and we're going to have some new best practices on where those should be placed. Remember, standard ACL as close to the destination as possible if you can do it. All right, best of luck to you in your studies. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.